Welcome back to the LEC Summer Playoffs. It's been a long break for some of us, a little bit shorter for others, but I am happy to be back here in the arena here in Adlershof, Berlin for Heretics versus SK. I'm joined by the magnanimous Dagda and the something else, Broxah. I didn't think of a word for you.
Wow.
I had like 4 words going through my head. I couldn't get any of them out.
Yeah, that was smooth.
Elegant.
Elegant? Yeah, sure, elegant. Elegant Broxah. It's great to have you guys here.
Yeah, glad to be here, and especially get back into things. I mean, look, the week off was all lovely-dovely, but I really want to get into some League of Legends, and I'm excited to kick things off with our first place team, which is very weird to be saying when you're thinking about SK Gaming.
Yeah, it's been a while since they've been at the top, but they're looking very dominant and very strong right now, and super excited to see them going against all the veterans on the Heretics side.
Yeah, it was 2015 spring, the last time we saw SK at the top of the regular season's table. Fnatic in that year made history in the LEC by going 18-0. A few of the players on that team, some names that you might remember, Svenskeren, Freddy122, obviously heading up Rogue now, Fox, Forgiven and N-rated. None of them still competitively playing.
Well, the funny thing is, they finished 4th in that playoffs, and they end up losing in the semi-finals to UOL Hylissang. And then they went into the 3rd, 4th place matchup and ended up losing to H2K Odoamne, which is kind of like, oh yeah, well, like they've been around for a while. But that was their rookie year. That's how long ago it's been since SK won, or at least came in at the top of the table.
And now they're back, about to go up against Heretics, and starting off with a Gragas ban, something that Wunder obviously has been very, very solid at so far. Some of the expected prior picks coming in at the moment would be the like of Rumble for top lane, Sejuani for jungle, but outside of that, it's fairly flexible for the most part.
Because Skarner's dead. Skarner's gone now with the changes to him, so we're definitely seeing a lot of changes coming into how a lot of the teams approach draft coming into 14-13, but also looking towards SK, we've started to see teams kind of pick up this like Sejuani, Maokai ban in a lot of times because they're just like, hey, we want to try and get Isma away from these big tank junglers, and maybe it's even a case of leaving open something that's a bit more higher priority so then they can maybe steal one of those options away from themselves as well, especially for Jankos, who loves the Sejuani.
It does feel like when SK have Isma on a utility tank in the jungle, it opens up the rest of their lanes for a lot of pressure in the early game, especially bot lane. Rahel and Luon have definitely been the stars for SK across summer. We'll see if they can continue that form going into playoffs. Lucian banned away by Heretics, alongside that Rumble, Zeri and Gragas taken away by SK. And I wonder where Zwyroo will go with his pool. You talked a little bit about this in Euphoria, Dagda, but the mid lane meta changes have really affected how Heretics want to play.
Yeah, and he definitely has favored things like the Corki and those kind of things that we see at the moment are just being banned away. So I think he's kind of struggled to find his footing, but had a great showing against Humanoid. It was on the Corki. So I think it's a case of trying to find these AD mid laners like a Tristana or something where he can have a little bit more of an impact. But I think taking away those big playmakers like the Nico and that kind of stuff has kind of tempered Zwyroo's impact in the game in certain occasions.
Well, speaking of mid lane so far, the prior picks available that both of these guys have locked in already in LEC are Talia and Tristana. Question is if they want to pick up one of the two already here for SK or save it for a later stage. Could be something like a Maokai for jungle, perhaps, if you want to make sure you get that strong team fighting jungler for yourself, but Tristana it is.
When Tristana's available, Tristana is picked up. She's just too good, gets pressure in the mid lane early on, can just push that lane out, and then later on in the game as well, her ability to take towers in a side lane is basically unmatched.
Yeah, and I think that's where, just even in team fights, she's so strong as well. So I think this is where we're going to see maybe them trying to match a lot of AD mid laners. We've seen some crazy things trying to come in for AD mid laners, even if you look over the LPL, like Zeri mid started to be played once or twice. I think there's a lot of these picks that are just like, can we slam an AD mid laner to match Tristana? But if you're going to take the Ivern, that is still open. But I'm kind of surprised that they didn't just take the Maokai away, because as Broxah was saying, I think that's kind of the big pick here for Isma.
Yeah, and right now it should be fairly easy for SK Gaming to secure a strong team fighting comp for themselves. When I think of both these teams, that's generally what it comes down to and how the games are decided. Who has the better team fighting comp, and especially on SK's side, getting a strong counter for irrelevant later. So that means looking for AD here, perhaps now picking a counter pick for jungle or for the Leona.
So I was, just as we see the Zeri locked in, I was doing some solo queue watches just to see what was happening. Irrelevant has started to play Zeri top. Now, it doesn't matter because Gnar immediately got locked in, as I said that. But just to keep it on the radar, he's been experimenting with that after seeing Zayas play it.
I think it's worth pointing out that out of all champions Wunder's played so far, Gnar actually is really solid into most of them. I'm looking at stuff like the Cassandra, the Poppy, the Ornn, and I think that's really what this comes down to. Gnar has been a fantastic pick for Irrelevant so far this split, and especially in the most recent week. And he's just looking Wunder dead in the eye and telling him, you're not going to counter this, bro. I have nothing to be afraid of.
And I think it also sets up for what you were saying earlier, Broxah, which is this is already a great teamfight setup for SK, right? Like, you've got a strong front line that can play for double AD carry setup. I think the only issue I'd have with it is that I'd like to see kind of Isma's champion picked a little bit earlier, because I do think he's looked best when he's on the Maokai, or on those more tank facilitator junglers. But now there's the Maokai ban, and I think Heretics are going to continue to put that pressure onto Isma. And I think then, because you kind of need that AP aspect now coming from the jungle, Isma's champion pool, if they ban away something like the Brand or the Zyra, is going to kind of be the flip, which I don't feel fits SK the best.
I agree with you there. Still things like the Karthus and the Lilia options, if you want to go down that AP route. Have also seen Isma on the Diana as a possibility. You could forego all magic damage in your team and look for something tanky alongside something like a Renata and just play very slow team fights front to back it with a Zeri and a Tristana.
So they banned Malphite, which makes me think they might have been considering that might be the option.
I'm wondering here for SK, I mean, it's not really the bread and butter for Isma, like we talked about, getting him on an engaged champ like Maokai Sejuani normally is the preference, but you could log in a Zyra here, or a Brand. Like, AP junglers are still fairly strong. So no, but Zyra is actually a really strong pick right now, but then again, it comes down to whether or not SK are willing to take a risk and change up their playstyle. But that's one of the beauties of playing a best of 3, that you can take those risks and still come out on top.
And also having the week off, right? The ability to have that bit of extra time to play things that perhaps you haven't been as comfortable on the LEC stage. There's the Braum taken away by Heretics, alongside that Camille removed by SK. So Heretics likely looking towards their mid laner here. They know that it's into the Tristana. Give Wunder counter pick for last and give him something that can deal with Irrelevance 9, the top lane. But you could also go top lane here, and then mid lane last, depending on how much flexibility you want.
Exactly,
right?
you got a ton of options, and I mean, even taking the TF means that you've still got a little bit of flexibility. But you know, you're up into the Gnar, and Gnar has always struggled with traditionally matches that outrange him. So when you think back to things like the Jace and that kind of stuff, are always things that struggled against. So the TF definitely fits into that wheelhouse where you're able to stun him, try and keep him at arm's length, and then look to continuously trade against the Gnar as long as you dodge the boomerang.
We can't pick something we do see relatively often with the Zeri. I'd prefer something like, I was going to say Rell. Lulu as well kind of works if you're going for that disengage style. The power of Rell is, as soon as the Leona jumps in, Rell can just engage herself and distract the enemy team. Rakan does a similar job, but is a little bit more squishy and more reliant on his team being nearby for him to escape. There is the Rell picked up, and it does look like an AP jungle on the cards here for SK.
I love this Lilia hover. I don't want to get painted yet, but there's a lot of great AP options right now. There's many different directions you could go with this one. We'll have to see what Isma is cooking for us.
I don't know if I'm a fan of the Nidalee though. Broxah, you're a jungle guy, right?
Here we go.
I feel like the Nidalee is such high pressure to really have those moments where you can pop off in the early stages, or you just fall off, and realistically you don't have a huge amount of setup apart from the Rell. So where's your head at with this, Broxah? Because personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it here.
I think whenever you pick Nidalee, you're definitely going high risk, high reward. It's the kind of champion, both in competitive and solo queue, where if you play it to perfection and if you play really aggressive, especially with the pressure coming off Tristana mid lane, you can make a really, really big difference. But if you don't, and if you're just playing a slow team fighting game, you're not going to be very impactful.
It looks like it's going to be Smolder mid into this Tristana as well. It could be Varus mid, Smolder bot lane.
There is also an inkling that it could be Smolder top.
We've seen it a little bit, because you were talking about the range as well.
Yeah.
At the moment, it is Varus mid, Smolder in that AD carry position for Flakked. I will say, you know, some people are like, oh, I don't like European Nidalees that much. Give it to Canyon, let him play it. It's 50-50 for Isma on the Nidalee. Last time he played it was 2023 in the Superliga. He has played it 4 times, won 2, lost 2.
Yeah, and I think it made sense for the style that our Mad Lions Enemy Masters was playing, which is, or not, sorry, Mad Lions, Giants?
Movistar Riders.
Movistar Riders, yeah. Sorry, my brain lagged. But when he was going for these invades, you had a lot of support coming through from his team where they want to play the hyper-aggressive style. So I think that's what we're going to have to see SK try and do here. But this is a very different style for SK. Like, they haven't played this hyper, we're going to play for Isma, play for Invade, and try and get him face the enemy jungle.
I think this is a really, really nice risk to take. I love it from a jungle point of view. And sure, the Nidalees that we see from the West have often been questionable. Even in the Eastern regions, just very few junglers can make it work. But for now, let's see what Isma has to offer and see if he's going to be cooking well if the kitchen ends up being on fire in a little moment.
Or if he just needs to chuck himself out with the spear.
I mean, playing Nidalee against Jankos as well, a callback to Jankos' G2 days where he was known. He was a very good Nidalee player. We just like to tease him about missing his spears from time to time. But we're going on to Summoner's Rift for the first game of the LEC Summer Playoffs. Everything building up, of course, towards our season finals, towards our summer finals as well before then. At the moment, much ado about nothing on the Rift. Everyone just sticking towards their usual assignments. I'm trying to see if there's anything interesting rune-wise. Fleet for Nisqy and Rahel. Zwyroo going for the press the attack. Flakked with a fleet in the bot lane and Aftershock on both of the supports. So we're keeping track of that in fights.
Yeah, so
hello.
Nothing too crazy. Hey.
I have to say hi, apparently. That's what I was told.
I was a little curious what Nisqy was doing there, because well, he's still, there it is, he's going to jump over and just try and get this early lead for Wunder. This is actually pretty cool to see.
It's an interesting one, because often you'll see when you have a Twisted Fate on your team will play up towards the top side to get a ward in the second bush in the lane, usually into melee matchups because it means you can harass them a little bit more. Against the Gnar, not as important, obviously, because he has that ranged form. But here, Wunder will, well, he started his recall and then decides against it. We'll just go back towards the lane. I expect that health trade isn't really going to mean too much, but we'll keep our eyes on it as the game progresses.
Yeah, I think if he got the slow, maybe you can get a little bit more come through from Relevant, who then has the boomerang to follow up. But as is, I mean, he's got fleet footwork, he's going to be fine.
So, Matt, Broxah. Sorry. I'm cool, I know his real name.
Mr. Elegant. Mr. Elegant.
Mr. Pedersen. Talk a little bit about what you would be thinking as a jungler in this early game, because Rob has already, Dagda has already talked about how he would want to be invading on the Nidalee. You want to get those jungle camps stolen away. How can your team facilitate you in doing that in this sort of game?
So, as Nidalee, there's two different ways to approach the game. One is to take your red buff and then either do one quadrant or just invade level 2 immediately. Or you can look to do a full clear, utilize the pressure you're going to be having off of the Tristana mid lane, so then, you know, make something happen, let's say in the top side, for example. I think at the end of the day, he doesn't necessarily have to remove Ivern from the game. Right now, you can also see he's just continuing to full clear towards top, but what I want to see is them utilizing Nisqy to make something happen in the side lane, because that Tristana is naturally going to have a lot of pressure, Nidalee stronger than Ivern, and thereby the map is going to be completely open for you to do whatever you want, whereas Jankos on the other side is just going to be playing to survive. If the early game goes even, Team Heretics is extremely, extremely happy because Ivern shines and becomes an absolute monster once he has 1 or 2 core items, meaning Isma is really on a timer. Now, the upside of playing Ivern is that, as you can see here, if he's left untouched, 3 minutes in, the full clear is already going to be finished, and now he can invade with a level advantage.
Yes, it's Smite up as well, as does Isma. Ward comes across the wall. Smite goes down from Isma, rooted with the root caller, but Jankos should be able to walk his way away from this one. Even with Nisqy starting to collapse, Jankos will realize not really safe in this portion of the map right now.
Yeah, they should just be able to play here, though, and wait for the scuttle spawn, so Isma should be able to pick that one up. I imagine Jankos is actually going to go for a reset and try and match onto that bottom side. Has his own smite available, so at least can try and steal that away if Isma tries to go from scuttle to scuttle.
Looks like Isma will decide to back away because of that exact eventuality. Zwyroo and Nisqy trading here in the mid lane. Phone blading coming up just in time to keep Zwyroo that little bit more healthy.
I think that was the thing that we saw a lot from Zwyroo, was that like he had these decent trades against Humanoid, but really struggled against people like Cap. So Nisqy already putting the hurt on him. You can see Jankos just moving in here to help him get push as he starts to move into bot side.
Yeah, right now we are going to see both bot side quadrants spawning for the junglers very soon. This could be a moment for Isma to start playing aggressive. He has a lot of damage with Dark Seal and Am Tome completed as well.
Gonna step in, spear misses Zwyroo. Shouldn't be able to walk away for the moment. Trap across the wall, get him a little bit more vision, but Trymbi doesn't step in it, and so Heretics will be able to walk away with the prize that was their Scuttle Crab.
You still have to wait for Isma to get...
Zwyroo traded here by Nisqy. Flash, then is played. Nisqy flashes away from it. The trigger seeds enough to keep Zwyroo alive. The ignite tick from Trymbi. And down went Nisqy in the end. Zwyroo died as well.
I think it was the autos from the creeps.
Well,
he got the
no
flash
way.
away, but just those little few seconds end up taking him down. I saw him go down to 8 HP. It was like, there's no way he survives, but he didn't, unfortunately.
That was a scary moment from an Isma point of view. It's like the split second you leave your mid laner thinking he's going to be safe. He jumps in 1v3, but luckily for the side of SK, Nisqy managed to find the superstar out of play. Isma quickly decided to do his Crocs and Raptors to get level 5 for himself, knowing that later he would have Prio, and now could look for Dragon.
But this is kind of the story of SK, right? These individual moments that really shine. Nisqy with a great flash away, and you see the flashes, but the creep autos
Oh my goodness.
just following across. Literally the last one manages to take him down.
Nisqy with a thumbs up as well from beyond the grave.
Calculated.
Taunting Zwyroo as it is a 1-for-1. The Drake goes over to SK. They have a lead in the bot lane as well, and Nisqy a key performer for SK. Although our eyes have very much been on the bot lane, he continues to impress, and you can see how much time he's spending with Isma trying to get the game set up for success.
And I think that's where Nisqy's really shown, but hang on, no, we're okay. I think Nisqy's been really, really good at like finding that success in side lanes, been able to find those moments in team fights. And even when you look at the last game where we talked a lot about Relevant popping off in the Gnar, it was Nisqy's Azir that really had that hero moment at the Baron, but now Isma topside.
Wunder pops the ghost, flashes away from the wall up, isn't stunned. Isma going for the chase though. Wunder has no sums left, but he has a trigger seed from Jankos and a Trymbi to boot. Irrelevant, the first target. They go in with the Destiny as well. Wunder just trying to provide that a little bit of extra vision. It's going to be hard to get away. In the end, Heretics decide to back away with Luon coming across. Isma dashing back forward. Another spear hits onto Jankos. Irrelevant doing everything he can to just put that little bit of poke damage down. And now Trymbi goes in. The crash down from Luon just wide. Trymbi's able to step away.
And I think that's really where SK fighting over the grubs was what they wanted in that reward, but they will be able to move across. It looked a little shaky at times, but with Wunder being able to flash over the wallop coming through from Irrelevant meant there was no real setup for Isma with the spear. So SK, they get pressure on bot side and they get the Void grubs off the back of that as well.
I think overall the look from Heretics made a lot of sense because they had number advantage for just a moment, but the problem was Wunder still hadn't recalled and was sitting on Doran's blade. You're going to have no damage coming out of both Ivern and Leona, and you're playing into the likes of Nidalee with a heal. So while the idea was there, that comp just hasn't come online yet.
Especially when you were talking, Broxah, about like later on in the game wanting to see Nisqy be a sideline threat. Void Group's going to help, but now getting CC'd.
Nisqy still has jump, so he'll be fine. Even with the chain of corruption and possibilities from Zwyroo, you could see Nisqy just holding on to that rocket jump for as long as possible. And across the board, SK actually developing some leads. You can see taking a couple plates in the top lane, a plate in the bot lane. There's about a 10 CS lead for Rahel as well, who's basically been in an isolated 1v1 against Flakked. Obviously, Smolder scaling, only at 44 stacks right now, but as the game progresses, becomes infinitely more strong than he was at the start.
Right now we're in a window where Nidalee still hasn't based for a while. Isma is sitting on a lot of gold and most likely will want to burn his recall soon before they look for an aggressive play.
Played forward here. Isma's off towards the side. Nisqy jumping onto Zwyroo, who does still have that chain of corruption, now uses it. Nisqy buster shots him away, but they're both down to about 200, 300 HP. Daisy doing work as well as keeping Luon and Isma at bay. In the end, she'll fall. And the Scuttle Crab, the target for SK.
So I think Nisqy was trying to get the buster shot to interrupt the Q wind up on Varus, but didn't quite get it off in time. So Varus actually got the shot, so Zwyroo able to trade back relatively well. But Luon wants more here, just misses it.
Trymbi going back in with the Zenith Blade as well. Jankos with the root caller, Zwyroo going forward. Luon flashes, crashes down, and Zwyroo is forfeit. SK get their second in the mid lane.
And right now, despite not even getting the base off of Nidalee yet and spending the gold, SK know they're so powerful. They know that their position doesn't have too much damage, and they're just continuing to put their foot on the gas pedal. Now, soon we're going to see Dragon spawning in 1 minute and 40. Shortly after that, Void Grubs are going to be up and available. So at this point, that's really what it's all about for the SK lineup. Getting those objectives as soon as possible and just continuing to get the snowball rolling.
It's been an interesting sequence though, because often it feels like Trymbi is the one who is looking for the fight after the fight, right? He's re-engaging. It's like, oh, we have Trigger Seed, we have the Root Caller, we have enough CC. But as you said, Mads, you don't really have the damage. And also, Jankos isn't that supportive yet. He only has a Ruby Crystal.
But I think that's been the standout that I've had over the last week watching Heretics, is just how much more involved Trymbi has been. And we've been talking about it for a while with Heretics. Was the best version of them was when Trymbi was out on the map making plays, and last 2 games that they had, that was kind of what fed into their strong early game. Yes, they ended up losing one of those games, but they still had these very crucial moments in the early stages where they got leads, and we're starting to see now Trymbi acting to try and make that happen. It just hasn't quite found that success that it has.
It's also a difficult time for the Heretics lineup here in the early game. We see Irrelevant and Nisqy pressuring really, really hard in the solo lanes. Irrelevant obviously not creating a lead for himself yet, but he did get countered by the TF, so him just being in this situation is good enough to begin with. We have a 1,000 gold lead mid, 700 in bot lane, Nidalee into Ivern. It's really, really hard for Heretics to strike back, but now with these objectives spawning, they may have to consider if they can actually look for a play soon.
The struggle of giving up the 3 grubs and the Drake early. Right now, they're about 1,000 gold in the hole, and that's a Kraken Slayer complete already for Nisqy. I feel like if you take a fight on these terms as Heretics, you're likely to lose it unless you can find some good damage before the fight really begins. And Nisqy's looking for exactly that as Jankos is chunked out. Look at that, that's half his health from just the Kraken. Trymbi flashing forward with the Zenith Blade. Nisqy still has a flash, the Solar Flare coming down. Chain of Corruption for the follow-up, and Mom is called to the party. Zwyroo takes the kill, and it's great for Heretics. SK overextend.
That was beautiful from Heretics. I saw Trymbi go in and was like, I don't know if you have the damage to follow up. Zwyroo just barely able to clip with the ultimate over the wall, keeps Nisqy locked up, and suddenly Heretics come alive.
And this is exactly what they need to be looking for in this situation. They finally found a moment where not only could they lock down Nisqy, but they created a number advantage where Flakked was there and Rahel was stuck in bot lane. These little windows is exactly the ones where you need to go in when you're playing from behind, and you know, finding it now is going to put them in a much, much better position to play the rest of the game.
And it's not the first time we've seen SK kind of make these fumbles in the early stages. It kind of, where they'll come back is in that mid game through great team fighting or individual performers, but it's mistakes like this where Nisqy thinks he's found a moment onto Jankos, and it's a nice sidestep, don't get me wrong, to try and get away from Jankos, but unfortunately it means that he's kind of stuck here, doesn't get the jump reset off quick enough, and then the follow-up CC, he's just locked for days.
No opportunity for him to move out of that. 6 grubs for SK, a Drake apiece, and it is Chemtech Soul on the Rift for us now. But the gold lead that SK was starting to extend has shrunk quite a lot. Trymbi getting chased down here by Luon. He's stunned up with a Shadowing Strike, crashed down for a little bit more CC, and Trymbi down to about 200 HP. Irrelevant dashing forward. Isma going in as well. The Solar Player hits onto Irrelevant, but he almost has that Mega Gnar back up. Rahel joins the fray, and SK will settle with a single kill.
And I like that SK are going this aggressive. At this stage, they have a ton of pressure in sidelines with Nisqy having the advantage over Zwyroo, but also just Irrelevant being able to get 2 of those third plates down the top side means that SK, if they can play through the sides like Broxah was talking about, use these 6 Void Grubs, it becomes really difficult for Heretics to try and combat them.
Yeah, and right now we're also reaching a point where Nisqy already has a Kraken Slayer, but the first core items are coming in for Gnar, for Zeri, for Nidalee, and as these items come in for the side of SK, they're going to continue to play more and more aggressive, and Herald coming up in a minute could be another great opportunity for them to fight. Most of them are coming out of base now, so we need to see how they group together and how they avoid getting caught off guard again. They need to just get the vision, force Heretics in a position where they need to face check, and then it's so easy for them to turn and find the dreaming cages.
And that's why I want to keep my eyes on Isma and Luon. These guys working together needs to be the function, or at least part of the function, to get that vision and try and get that control. But if you misstep, you can see how well Trymbi's been moving around the map, working with Jankos, trying to combat SK, getting any control on the map. And if you can slow down that vision, it kind of slows down SK and lets Heretics get their footing.
Heretics playing around the darkness there as plates about to fall off in 20 seconds time. The 6 grubs, not as useful, obviously, after the plates go down. You can still take towers very quickly, but you don't get that extra gold from taking the plates. And looks like we're going to sit where we are in terms of those early game plates being taken.
It's funny though, because if you look at the stats, the top teams all highly prioritize the Void Grubs, and it is just because that turret taking. If you end up with a teleport advantage at some stage and you have to force difficult decisions onto the enemy team, having that extra little bit of damage on towards those turrets makes things very different. But now, with the Rift Herald in tow, Heretics entering in towards River, they spotted out where SK are.
Wunder has the Destiny as well, so you always have that little bit of extra vision control as the fight goes on. Wunder moving down from the top side. Go the long way around the river here, and it looks like Heretics have given up the Ghost on the Rift Herald. They'll just get the push in the mid lane. Isma picks up the Eye. Wunder going to get jumped on by Nisqy. There's still a tower standing there, but Wunder, even with the Ghost, does still have the flash. Will use it now. Isma didn't jump the wall. I feel there could have been more of a chase, but with Heretics moving up the river, perhaps they call it off for now. SK have already been caught out overextending once. Wunder under the tower. Is he going to be able to recall? He stops his base, and now Wunder's done for. Destiny! My name is Isma. Redemption coming down. Trymbi looking for the Solar Flare. Irrelevant with a good wallop. Stop Trymbi in his tracks.
It was nicely played by SK because they knew that they'd gotten that jump on towards Wunder. They could again separate Heretics from getting on towards that top side. That's why we saw Heretics playing so aggressive into the river to try and deny SK getting to the top side. But now you got the turret taken, and Heretics have collapsed.
I think SK thought more of Heretics would stay around the mid lane. Nisqy's going to try and rocket jump his way away. Flakked here uses the blast cone. Trymbi flashes, and Nisqy uses his as well. But now Nisqy's in between two turrets. He's able to walk out of their range right now. Can he escape from here? A blast cone a possibility, and he's left to his own devices. Heretics can't chase him any further.
Unbelievable. It must be so frustrating being on Heretics' side right now. You can just see at all times how much they're trying to brute force all these fights, but it's so difficult for them to do anything versus SK. And you know, where they're so close to finding these key engages, even just looking for it to begin with just makes the game worse and worse for them. And being in this position, being in a comp that's, you know, so scaling oriented and that loses early on, you need to be okay with giving up stuff. And in this particular case, if they had just played cautiously, they could easily have defended all their turrets.
It was only about 5 minutes ago we were praising Heretics for how well they found that catch onto Nisqy. They'd evened out the gold, and now it's 2,500, almost 3,000 in SK's favor. They have almost 2 items on Nisqy. The static shift complete for Rahel. Trinity Force on Irrelevant. Lichbane on Isma. It feels like SK have damage for days. The question is, can Heretics survive through it? They do have the Redemption. Jankos about to finish his jungle pet as well, so we'll have that 1,200 damage smite if they do decide to fight around one of these neutral objectives.
I do like the tactic Jankos has employed, which is don't look at the man behind the grass. We just set up all these bushes in mid lane. I was like, I swear I'm not in this bush. I'm not going to jump out if you try and make an engage. But SK, they're not going to take the bait. Instead, they're going to be happy to just get the dragon instead and continue to just put pressure on towards these sides. Like, no one can really deal with Irrelevant at this stage, nor can anyone deal with Nisqy. So as long as you just keep control over the mid lane and kind of have Luon and Isma playing towards those sides, there's very little that Heretics can do.
And right here, like the key part was Nisqy pushing in top lane versus the Wunder, who doesn't have summoners, who doesn't have TF ult, while Nisqy has his teleport available, and they're just gonna continue pushing in side lanes, making it so hard for Heretics to ever create a number advantage. And even if a side lane gets engaged on, you have mid prio, you have a teleport coming from the other side, and you can easily defend the target being attacked.
And they still have Herald, which they're meant to block 10 in the mid lane, so it's like, oh cool, we see Wunder on top side, we see Zwyroo has entered into bot, we're immediately just going to collapse onto mid lane and take this mid lane turret, keeping Heretics push back, denying them access to any sort of part of the map, and Isma just going to drive this away. I don't think he'd be able to get onto the bottom side, but
I think he wants to go to his jungle camps.
Yeah.
A little bit quicker.
Well, I've seen it a couple of times, and I think the idea is to like desync it with the minion wave, so then you have to stick around that little bit longer to clear it out, and just like disrupting tempo that little bit.
Well, he managed to do that. Flakked stayed around, though. He'll clear out Shelly. But opening up that mid tower just gives SK so many more avenues to attack, right? When you have this side lane threat, you put 3 or 4 people in the mid lane, get that shoved out, and then they can move to the lane that's pushing in towards those tier 2s. Them still standing across the map for Heretics. They just need to delay the game as Heretics. You need to get to 2 items on the Ivern, as you said, Broxah. Get to 2 items on your AD carries. Get Smolder to that 225 stacks. Although not as powerful as it used to be, still a very big breakpoint for the champion, giving you those executions. Question is, will they be able to do so?
And I do like that they're setting Flakked up in the mid lane, because there is always like, hey, it could be Zwyroo, it could be Flakked, but I think the only way Heretics can really defend is using Flakked's wave clear in this mid lane to try and keep some pressure in the mid. You can see him struggling a little bit as he's just solo, doesn't want to step up too far with SK there. But the second you lose party in mid, you can see what SK are doing. They just run to link up with Nisqy, take that top tier tower thanks to those 6 Void Grubs and the pushing power of Tristana, and now you're just slowly slipping behind as Heretics.
I think SK seemed aware that 3 people were hunting Irrelevant in the top side. They sent everybody down there looking for that one pick, but the problem for them is even if Irrelevant oversteps and dies, they're still going to lose that tier 2, might even lose a tier 3, and best case you get 1 kill in bot tier 1, but again, it's so tough playing these scenarios from behind that they're just desperately looking for this one pick that again can buy them a bit of time.
And we haven't even hit 20 minutes. you're starting to look at like all the outer turrets being under threat, Heretics being pushed back into their base, and Baron hasn't even come up. So now trying to get control over a Baron area, get control even a third dragon that could be coming up for SK is so difficult. And as you're saying, to get these picks, Heretics kind of need that vision, but it's so hard.
I think the challenge is looking for these engages before SK already have full vision your jungle, before they're already set up in the 1v1, because that's the problem. Heretics generally has the right idea, but it needs to happen earlier. Like now, sure, you get to clear the vision that SK already established, but you have to be there before them and engage when they walk in, otherwise it's not going to work.
And you can see that they were attempting to do it. They'd already, if you look at the... Actually, hang on again. They'd already like shifted Wunder down from the top side to try and play off of this kind of mid lane area. So then there was a position where if you ended up pushing too hard into the river, you could try and make a play with Wunder and find those moments to outplay it. But SK just never overextending. If they see any member of Heretics, they're just backing up and going, hey, no, we just need to play for waves. Take it slow. Just don't give Heretics that chance.
Simple arithmetic, isn't it? If you see less of them than there are of you on the map, perhaps you need to back away because they're probably hiding and waiting to catch you out, and that's exactly what SK are doing. Next Drake up in a minute and a half. They have 2 items on both their AD carries. Isma's almost at 2 items. Irrelevant has the Black Cleaver alongside the Trinity Force, and this Nidalee experiment, this AP jungle experiment we talked about in the draft seems to be paying off for SK so far. Obviously, it hasn't all been about Isma, but we saw early pressure through the mid lane really unleashing them on the map.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to Nisqy's ability to play these aggressive mid laners and making it easy for his entire team to, you know, make plays on side lanes and in the jungle. And overall, that's what ultimately makes this SK such a strong team, that it's not only about one individual. Sure, somebody can step up and apply pressure, but once that happens, everybody else instantly, you know, sets themselves up for success as well. And now, everybody has pressure. Everybody's so strong.
And I think it's been cool to see that kind of evolution of Nisqy, where he was kind of the gatekeeper into the top, like to be the top mids in Europe, to just becoming one of the top mids in Europe, especially this split. His mechanics have looked really strong. His understanding of how to roam and where to be in the map has been great. And as a result, SK have been thriving off these like individual plays from the mid laner.
Looks like at the moment SK are trying to funnel as much gold into Rahel as possible. He was over on the top side of the map, taking the blue buff for his team. Now he's going to catch this wave in mid. They want to get him towards those 3 items as soon as possible. And the rest of his team getting control over the dragon. It's one of those things you can do when you are this far ahead, because if SK were a little bit further, a little bit closer to Heretics in terms of gold, you don't really want to invest 3 people into fighting 4 people around their blue buff while your AD carry is somewhere else. But because SK know they have that pocket of safety made by their wallet, they can be a little bit more aggressive with how they step into the enemy jungle.
Yeah, but you can also see, like, SK, like, there was moments there where, okay, Heretics could forego dragon contention and just go immediately move on to top side, try and catch out Irrelevant when he's out of position, or find those moments with Wunder where he can TP to somewhere and find a pick. But the second you again see these members off the map, Irrelevant is hiding in Tribrush. He's not actually stepping into a lane or showing where he is in the map. So trying to find these moments where Heretics can make counter punches is just not really happening for them.
Right now we're seeing Nisqy moving directly into the mid lane from base, which tells me that SK wants to start playing more aggressively, either by forcing a Baron play or pushing really deep vision into Heretics jungle. With Nisqy here, they can pretty much do whatever they want, and now we're going to have to see if Heretics manages to find a response.
Okay, could just start this up, right? Zwyroo in the bottom lane, they know he's there. He's on a minion wave, so really looking to just pull his TP in. Luon will put a ward in that bush, I actually think, just around the corner. Trymbi stepping forward, no TP invested yet. Ward cleared out by Heretics. Know that SK have backed away now. Zwyroo was able to get the push in the bot lane and walk his way across, so no TP invested for Heretics. Just trying to slow this game down as much as they can.
Yeah, Mega Blast Cone kind of helping out a little bit there, as Varus able to cover way more distance than traditionally set up. But yeah, you're going to see SK now just go, hey, we're going to go onto the bottom side. But now it's Heretics that are trying to play this teleport game as they sit outside Baron. They're going to start up, try and get Nisqy's TP.
And you have Daisy hits tank it as well, and the Trigger Seed's obviously giving you a lot of extra effective HP. Isma comes across. Nisqy has just cleared out the wave in the bot lane, now can path up. Trymbi down to about half HP. From the poke from SK and from the Baron, so SK will back away. Nisqy didn't TP. Flash forward by Trymbi, but he misses the Zenith Blade. It grazes Irrelevant's ankles, but does not connect. And now Nisqy has so much free time with the bot lane tier 2, and Rahel has free time with the mid lane as well. 2 towers for an enemy flash there by SK.
This looked like something coming straight out of a solo queue game, I'm gonna be honest. They're like, oh, look at these guys. They can hit the big purple worm. I want to do that too. Oh wait, we started it, what now? You know, and then realizing they really can't do anything. Nisqy and Rahel are both pushing. Trymbi desperately tries to flash forward, but honestly, even if, you know, his E connects, he's just gonna die and nothing good is gonna come out of it. And Heretics are struggling, dealing with SK's pressure and playing from behind.
And this is kind of to be expected, right? I think a lot of people are favoring SK coming into it. Like, when you look back traditionally at when these two teams have faced up against each other, it's been pretty even, 7 games to 7 across the course of the history between the two squads. But it has definitely felt very SK favored when you look at how well SK's been performing over the course of this year. And I think it kind of speaks wonders to just how good this team has become with Rahel and Luon coming in, kind of been able to work more as a team. Although Luon needs a bit of his team here as he's forced to jump away from Jankos.
For SK as well, pretty big if they're able to win this series. First time they have won a playoff series in 2024. You can see they had a bit of they were okay in winter regular season, then struggled a bit in playoffs, and managed to bounce back in the summer regular season as they start up the Baron right now. Heretics trying to get in here. Zwyroo still pushing out that bot lane. That Baron's already down to 5,000. Look at how far away Zwyroo is. The blast cone away. Luon engages, and they're doing the Baron and taking the fight at the same time. It's 2 already to SK. Wunder trying to get in. He has to flash away. Isma diving forward. It's an ace for 1. A Baron to boot as SK clean it up.
SK decimate Heretics off the back of the Baron, and with that, they'll just be able to walk it down the mid lane. The minion line is coming, and there's no one on Heretics to defend.
This is absolutely brutal scenes right now. With Heretics team comp, once they fall behind with the triple AD carry threat, there's just nothing they can do. Every person is a running free kill, and, you know, they don't have enough peel from the Ivern and Leona. They don't have enough front line, and it's just way, way, way too hard for them to do anything at this point.
Well, we had a week to wait, but it seems like SK are still in fine form as they go 1-0 up over Heretics.
Honestly, it felt like SK couldn't wait to get back into it.
Yeah.
That was really well played. Nisqy with some individual outplays in the mid lane, looking absolutely great. Like, I'm excited to see what the next game has.
So, Mike, we're going to go to a short break, but we will be right back after this.
Red Bull gives you wings.